Hi everyone, this is Brett Simon. So let's do some live question and answers. You can talk to me about anything. I'll just handle right at the beginning DV 2020 and DV 2021. No news on the lawsuits. So nothing to report on that front. DV 23 is over. DV 2022 is over. So the only questions I'm expecting would be about DV 2024 and possibly people who've entered DV 2025 and have questions about that. So I'm going to try and keep up with questions. I'm going to try and keep up with questions if any of you have questions. So by all means, ask them. But anyway, let's yeah, good to see you, Mohammed. Nice of you to join. Can you travel once I'm going to answer questions as soon as I get them, and I'm going to try and be fairly quick with the questions. Okay, so can we travel once a 2NL is issued? Yes, you can travel. And if you do travel once you've got a 2NL and you do a short trip, there's no need to update your DS260 for that travel. The DS260 was accurate at the time you submitted, which is fine. That's all you need to do. Any expectations for the VB for Algerians? I don't have an expectation for Algerians. Tonight, in around about 12 hours time, a video will go live which handles not really predictions, but an explanation using Asia as an example about how I expect the data to look. And so it stops short of predictions. It's not predictions, but you'll understand a little bit better how how the numbers work, how the case numbers work, and how case numbers are distributed over the full case number ranges. So that should be interesting to you. But as for Algerians and the next VB, no, I'm not going to try and make a prediction for that. Is it true that the green card will only be posted after to the reported address after arrival in the US? Yes. Until you activate your green card by entering the US, you're not a lawful permanent resident. So when you've got the visa, in between the time when you've had your interview, received your visa, and before you enter the USA, you're not an LPR, lawful permanent resident, and you won't get the green card until you enter the USA and have paid the fees. Okay. No news about 2020 or 2021. Mohammed says, people say I should not stay outside of US for more than 6 months, but the I-551 is valid for 1 year and it is an entry permit. I just don't get it. If you have an insight, please enlighten me. Yeah, so it's pretty clear. Firstly about the I-551, it's the period of validity of that document is 1 year. That's correct, but that means that it is valid for any entry you make during that 1 year period. It doesn't mean it's nothing to do with the amount of time you should stay out the USA. It's just how long is that document good for, and it's until you get the actual green card. So it's good for up to 1 year. Now, in terms of entries or being out of the USA, it's good advice to try and keep those absences out of the USA for less than 6 months. Technically, you can be out of the USA for up to 12 months at a time, at any time. It's nothing to do with having an I-551. This is just standard law about whether you can be out of the USA for for a period of time. So under 6 months is better. Between 6 months and 12 is technically permissible, but you might have more questions being asked of you during that longer period of time. And over 12 months is not advisable unless you've got a re-entry permit, which is not what an I-551 is. So yeah, basically the advice you've been given is correct, and just your understanding of the 551 was a little bit incorrect. Paige says, I'm from Melbourne, Australia. Got an interview in January. Appreciate your help and guidance from the blog. Are the interview questions out of the ordinary or specific to an individual case file? The questions page are really simplistic. They're conversational. They're very rarely designed to catch you out and you don't need to prepare for them. They're going to be very, very simple. they will be things like, what are you planning to do in the USA? Where are you planning to live? And it's not that you say, oh, we plan to live in Chicago, and they say, oh, well, no, you can't go then, because that's the wrong answer. There's no wrong answers. Okay, now, if you had married someone after your selection, there might be some questioning about that particular thing, right? If you have, I don't know, maybe you traveled to some particular place, maybe they would ask questions, but it's very rare that they're using the questions to delve into some sort of perceived problem or anything like that. It's very rare. So don't worry about the questions page. Badgie says, good evening, Brit Simon. I'm seeing some selectees are denied for rescheduling their interview date. What's your say on that? Yeah, people shouldn't assume that they will be able to reschedule the interview date. The embassy is entitled to either not cooperate or even say no to that. Now, so just look, this, I often used to say to people, I still do, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And when you get your interview date, there's very, very few things that you would have going on in your life that could possibly be more important than attending that interview. So it's not like having a haircut where you reschedule your hairdresser's appointment. It's not like that, right? This is pretty bloody important. And so you do everything you can to get to the scheduled interview date. And if you have to ask for rescheduling, understand it's not necessarily going to be convenient the next time they reschedule, right? So get to the bloody interview they set, right? Before you ask Nepal the highest case number, did you find out about it? Tell us what the highest case number of Nepal DV 2024 is. Okay, so there's a user that may well jump on this chat because he's been here a number of times, called Tech Pirate. And he reported to me that the Nepal highest case number was 15,000. And I was inclined to believe that. But other people reported higher numbers, significantly higher numbers. So I don't know. Now, if you're interested in Asia and you're interested in understanding about Nepal and Iran, you should watch out for a video that's going to go live in about 12 hours. And and it uses that data of the highest case number, but it's with an assumption. And so I think in the video I've assumed 25K as being the highest case number for Nepal. That's not based on any evidence, though. That's just an assumption, just a number to show how things will work out. So I'm still looking for Iran and Nepal highest case numbers in DV 2024. I might get it before January the 1st, but I will have it on January the 1st if nobody tells me in the meantime, right? Do we have to spend the half of the calendar year in the US to not risk losing the green card in the first year? No, you don't have to spend any minimum amount of time. Once you enter the US with your immigrant visa, you can leave 5 minutes later. In fact, quite famously, there's a gentleman called Clefs who answers questions in a Telegram channel, and he entered the US to activate his green card by crossing the border with Canada, and literally turned the car around and left like a few minutes later. I mean, and has had no problems because of that. He's now living in the USA. So there's no minimum amount of time. You can leave immediately. You don't have to, be there, for some minimum amount of time. Now, just understand that absences can reset the clock. Absences over 6 months can reset the clock for your citizenship. So it could delay the earliest time when you could apply for citizenship. But if that's not a problem for you, don't worry about it. And there's no rule that says you have to apply for citizenship or you have to do it as early as possible. If it's delayed a little bit, who cares? It doesn't make any difference. In fact, when I went for citizenship, I delayed my application myself deliberately because I didn't want a citizenship document under Trump's presidency. Frankly, I didn't want any chance that there was going to be a document that said, congratulations, you're a citizen, with that moron signature on the bottom of it. I didn't want that. So I delayed my citizenship application specifically to avoid that. And you can disagree with me politically. I don't care. You know, if you do, if you like Trump, that's your right, and it just shows you're dopey. That's all. Anyway, next question. Hello, Brit AF55K. My kids are in Cameroon, and my husband and I are in UAE. Would it be wise to bring them over for an interview in Abu Dhabi? I would, if you can, interview together. There is technically a way you can. You would interview first, and then you would schedule an interview for the family, the kids, and the spouse in Cameroon. That's technically possible, but it's not a great idea. It's you know, I would advise people to avoid it if you can, because it adds a complication, and you're creating a risk that maybe they don't get the green cards because time runs out before the end of the year, etc. So honestly, plan for them to come and attend the interview with you. You'll be scheduled for interview, and it's up to you whether they attend or not. All right. So if you can get them to attend it with you, then do that. The other thing you can do is move your interview to Cameroon and try and get scheduled there when you become current, so that you can interview with them. That would be the other way to handle it. All right. Any news about 21? No news. Introverted content creator. I always love this guy's name. I assume it's a guy. Okay, so you fill the DS260 with the new passport number, which doesn't have travel history. All my travels are on the old passport. Is that okay? Yeah, no problem. No problem. You can always take the old passport with you to the interview if you're concerned about that, and you can show the new passport. And if you can retain the old passport, some countries let you do that, some don't. But if you can retain the old passport, then yeah, take that to the interview as well. It's not a problem. Winner of DV 2024, 142K. It includes applicant spouses and children. Yes, it does. And the 55K number of visas is also including the number of spouses and children. So if a family of four, mum, dad, and two kids, of the 142K get approved, then they take 4 of the 55,000 visas, and the 4 on the 140 of the 142K are all on one case number, the winner's case number, right? So that's how it works. Yes, it includes all of the selectee number. The 142K includes all of the applicants, the spouses, and the children. Okay. I mean, they're not allowed to reschedule their interview. Yeah, I understood that. Do you have to wait to 0 of Jan 25 to get green card, or can you go straight after your interview? Okay, so if you become so for DV25, the situation will be this: you'll find out whether you're a winner or not in May of next year. If you're a winner, you'll have a case number, and the case number roughly determines when you're going to be interviewed between the 1st of October of 24 and the 30th of September of 25. Within that 1 year period, you'll get an interview. If by chance, let's say you had a very low case number and you were interviewed on October, in October of 24, you could, as soon as you get your passport back with the visa, you can enter the USA right there and then. You can go the next day, right? So there will be some people in DV 2025 that will enter the USA and start becoming, and will start being a resident of the USA in 2024. No problem with that. Okay. Right. Kyle Shiro. Anyway, hello Brits. I have the I-551 now, but I have a job contract in Canada until May 25. I plan to go back and forth between the US and Canada. Will that cause an issue at the border? Not really. It doesn't cause an issue. You have a job contract in Canada, so you really should be a resident in the USA. So if you're living in the USA, you've got a home in the USA, and you're traveling to Canada for a year and a half, and you're going there, a few days a week, no problem with that. If, on the other hand, you live in Canada and you're trying to keep your status alive by entering the USA occasionally, that can eventually cause problems. Like an immigration officer at the border could say, "Hang on a minute, you're not really resident. You're not residing in the USA, and so that could cause a problem. Right. So try and do it the other way around. Try and live in the USA and visit Canada. That would be the best way to do it. Please, my case number is AF16759 from Ghana. Do I have a chance? Yeah, you have a chance. Timothy says, part 1, my green card was delivered to my old address in Phoenix on October 3rd, said UPS. But I moved to Chicago since September and updated my address with USCIS. I asked and nobody's seen it. Yeah, so I've warned people about this many times. The original address that is on the DS-260, or that you update either at the interview or at the border the first time, is where the SSN and the green card will be sent. Updating the address with the USCIS with their online form, the AR11, won't change that delivery address reliably. Sometimes it's changed the address for some people, but I don't think that's the norm. The norm is they will stick with the address that they knew of on the day you entered the USA for the first time. So that was the problem you're having was predictable, in my opinion. Part 2, I can't secure an appointment at USCIS. What can I do? Keep trying, is all I can say. I don't know that you need an appointment. You're just trying to get them to redeliver the green card. So just keep trying. Just keep trying to contact them by phone. Tita says, good evening, sir. I want to know if my girlfriend gives birth after I've entered the DV lottery, what happens that I'm selected? Can I add the baby in the DS-260? No, just the baby alone, not the girlfriend. Okay, so technically, yes, you can do that. But think about it. How likely is it that you as a single man are going to want to go to the USA, start living in the USA, and only have the baby? Right? I mean, what are you telling the CO? Does that sound like a logical story? That a man is going to take the baby away from the mother and go live in the USA? No, that obviously isn't logical. And so a much more logical thing would be to marry the girlfriend, and the girlfriend and the baby go to the USA. Why wouldn't you do that? There's no problem with that. So you can add the baby, and if you get married to the girlfriend, you can add the girlfriend too. It's a genuine relationship. You've got a baby together. So unless you're planning to just like keep meeting new girls and living a single life, you would normally expect, in American terms, in American thinking, you would be doing the very normal thing by marrying the girlfriend that you got pregnant and now have a kid with, and now you want to go to the USA. It's a very normal thing that you would marry the girlfriend and add the baby and the girlfriend to your DS-260s and create DS-260s for them. So think like an American, Tita. Yeah, think like an American, and that's the best way to behave in that situation, I would have thought. Huda says, I had my interview today and was given a DS-5535. Is it a good sign? Bless you for being positive. It's not a good sign. I mean, it would be better without a DS-5535. So a DS-5535 is an enhanced background check. It's got many of the same questions that the DS-260 has got. Information about your address history, your employment history, and all that sort of stuff, your social media. It's got those same questions, but for a longer period of time, and it asks some questions about your siblings, okay, which the DS-260 didn't ask. And the idea of the DS-5535 is enhanced background screening. And so for whatever reason, they weren't entirely happy with the background screening from your DS-260, and they want a bigger picture. They want more information, and that will delay you. It will cause some sort of delay, either a few weeks or possibly a few months, while they put together additional background information about you, right? So I don't think of that as being good news. It's not good news. You're going to be delayed, but it's not bad news either yet. It's just a delay, okay? And because you're so early in the year, you've got time for that process to go through. So it's probably not bad news, but it's certainly not good news. Okay. Mumboni says, thank you very much. I'm a DV23. Thanks for your advice. I'm already in the US and I immediately joined the Navy and now stationed in San Diego base. Thanks. Fantastic. I'd love to hear this story. I had some friends over for dinner last night, and the guy is a cop. He's a policeman. And I think people underestimate how good and positive it is to go into the armed forces, serve in the US military. It can be very advantageous for your future life. It can be very good, whether it's whichever force it is, Army, Navy, Air Force, Space Force. Go into any of the branches of the military, that's good. Also, people should consider fire service and police if they can. You can't always get into a police force job as a green card holder. You sometimes have to wait for citizenship. But man, those guys, like this guy last night that I was with, he's youngish. He's upper 50s. He's eligible for retirement right now. He's going to leave the police force with a very good pension. And he's immediately able to go and start another job. And so he's going to work another 5 years. He's going to work for a university locally. And if he works for them for 5 years, he'll get another pension from them. So he'll have two pensions going on. He could live quite happily on his pension that he's getting from the police force. And now he's going to get a second income as well, and then another pension. I mean, guy's going to be absolutely, very, very comfortable in his retirement. And, he's a young, fit, guy. He's going to live another 40 years and he's going to do very nicely. So, I love to hear about people who are going into those sort of jobs, and Navy. Yeah. Hoorah, whatever. Don't know what you're doing, but good luck to you. That's fantastic. My friend Simon. Is your friend called Simon? My friend Simon. No, I see. My friend Simon. AF71K, Tanzania. Is it a high case number? Is that possible to receive a 2NL? It's not a particularly high case number, and it is possible that you'll receive a 2NL, but we just have to wait and see. How it sits, where it's distributed, we'll know better in January. Okay, so we'll wait and see. Is it possible to enter the US alone, settle down, and the wife and kids join me later? Can I collect my green card for the wife and kid when I enter the USA? Two parts to that question. First part, yes, there's plenty of people who do exactly that. They enter the USA pretty early after having been approved, and they find a job, settle down, and then invite the wife and kids to join later, right? The only thing is the wife and kids have to come before the expiry date on their visas. Okay, so that's all possible. And it assumes that you were the selectee, the winner, not the spouse, right? Because the winner has to go before the derivatives, either before or with the derivatives. The derivatives can't enter before the winner has entered, right? Second part, can you collect the green card for the wife and kids when you enter the USA? No, you can't do that. They will only have their own green card when they enter the USA. Okay, so yeah, you can do that. I won the DV21. I was watching all your videos during that crazy time with Trump. You're like a DV Bible. If I would be in charge, I would put you as head of USCIS and KCC. Me too. I would do that. The only thing is I wouldn't work for them because they pay crap. And also, if I was living in Kentucky Consular Center, or if I was working for KCC, I'd probably have to live in Kentucky. And that's not going to happen. Because that's like, me and Kentucky wouldn't really match. So yeah, that's not going to happen. Hi, Mr. Simon. What do you think? 31,000 from Asia, 2024 case number. Is it more highly case number or little bet good? You know what, Saeed? Watch the video that's going to be published tonight. You'll understand much better about your case number. I think if you wait about less than 12 hours now, so probably tomorrow your time, you'll see a video which goes into detail about Asia case numbers and case distribution. And so I think you'll understand better at that point. Lior says, do you think that the fact that this is the first time UK was allowed to apply for the DV lottery, do we have more chance than any other country or area? Okay, so it's not the first time that the UK has been in the lottery. In fact, my own brother and some of his friends got lottery wins in the very early days of the lottery. In the very early days, the UK was allowed to apply. And the second part of your question there is, do we have more chance than any other country or area? No. The chance of selection for any individual is the same as every other country in the region. And so by the region, I mean Europe. So someone who enters from the UK will have some percentage chance, maybe, I don't know, 1% chance or 0.5% chance. That will be the same as any other country in the region. There are some countries in the region that will have less chance than that, but no country will have more chance than that. So yeah, there won't be additional chances given to the UK. They're not going to say, oh, UK is all, those guys, they need that's first time, back to the lottery for 20 plus years. Let's give them a few extra winners. No, it doesn't work like that. No. Hello, Brett. A question from a non-English speaking winner. My case number is Asia 800. And when I worked at KCC, they tell me that my form is still processing. Any ideas why, although I submitted it in May? The time of processing cases takes varying times. And it depends on your background, on your job, on where you have lived, where you've traveled, who you're married to, what your name is, and so on. Now, Ali, sorry to point out the obvious, but your name sounds like you may be from a Muslim country, for example, in the Middle East, perhaps. And those are the sort of countries that give the USA more concern in terms of security issues, right? And terrorism issues. So they're going to look into your case a little bit more than some other cases, right? That's just natural. If you come from a country which is non-cooperative with the USA, such as Iran, then it will take longer still. And so this is an important point that some people don't realize. That there can be 10 cases that all submit their DS-260s on the same day in May. And those 10 cases are going to have much different process dates. The time when they're processed will be much later. Even though they're all opened on the same day, they take varying times to process, okay? If you live in the UK and you submit your DS-260 and you haven't traveled very much and your name is John Smith, you're going to be processed very quickly. If your name is Ali, let's just pretend your name is Ali bin Laden, and you live in Iran and you're a nuclear rocket weapons engineer, then you can expect your time of DS-260 processing is going to be a bit longer. Okay, that's just the way it is. Okay, and I don't mean to be insulting or facetious in any way, but that's the reality of life. Okay, and rightly or wrongly, that's how it works. Archie says, my case number is AF96,000. Do I stand a chance of getting an interview? I don't know. You're going to have to wait and see. Obviously a high number, obviously risky. And, we'll just have to wait and see. We'll have more data in January that will tell us exactly how high your case number is. But clearly it's a high case number. And the most risk in DV 2024 will be for high case numbers. So you have to wait and see, okay? 2020 Secretary, I was scheduled for interview on March in Ankara Embassy, but the interview was cancelled due to coronavirus. Please explain when you say those selectees are priority who have not obtained a visa before April. Okay, so no. So I said in a video probably 2 or 3 lives ago that I expect the priority to be given to people who were more advanced in their processing than other cases, right? Now, that's not the rule. That's just my expectation. We'll have to wait and see if the appeal is won, and in the Gomez case, and we have those extra visas that can be issued, we'll have to wait and see what their priority is. But I suspect that people in your position would probably get an earlier chance or a better chance than people who were not scheduled yet. And that, to me, it just seems logical, but we'll have to wait and see. Okay. What about 2020 and 21? Is all hope gone? No, the appeals are not done yet. It's not that all hope is gone. It's just that we don't have any news about that. Rabin says, on average, how long does DVAOS take? There isn't really an average, but I would say it's probably in the region of 2 to 4 months. It can vary. There are some cases that take longer, but in general, 2 to 4 months is probably about the timeline that you'll typically see. It's rare that you see a case sort of from submission of the I-485 all the way through to interview and acceptance in less than 2 months. But cases that go longer than 4 months are also kind of rare. So 2 to 4 months is probably about right. Yahaga says, can I change my interview location becoming current? Any possibility? Becoming current. Okay. So when your case becomes current and you've been processed, your DS-260 is processed, your case will very quickly be put into a status of AV, right? And when your case is in the AV status, KCC will no longer unlock your case, and they won't change anything about your case. They've assigned you at that point to an embassy. You may or may not get your 2NL at that point. You may not, because your embassy might be too backlogged to take your case. And if you get into that position, you are, in some embassies, you're completely screwed. It's a really bad idea to wait until that point if what you're trying to do is to get into a different embassy where you've got a possibility of getting interviewed. You'd be much better off unlocking your form, updating your address before you become current so that you get scheduled at the different embassy. On the other hand, if you do enter the AV status and your embassy is doing good, then you would get a 2NL for that embassy. And at that point, you can ask that embassy to move you to another embassy. And you have to speak to that other embassy and get their permission to do that. But that is possible. But the situation you don't want to become involved in is you listen to these idiots that say don't unlock your DS-260. So you wait until you become AV status. Then you get added to the AV queue for an embassy that has got a backlog that's so long you're never going to get an interview. And then your case is absolutely done for, completely ruined, because you are in AV status in an embassy that's never going to interview because they've got too many people lined up. That is a guaranteed way to screw up your case. All right. So don't risk that if you think you're at an embassy that is badly behaving. And we'll get more information about badly behaving embassies in January. And it's really, really important that if you're at one of those embassies that you pay attention to what I'm saying and you cut out listening to these morons that tell you things about don't unlock your DS-260. Because honestly, if you don't listen to this advice, you will F up your case completely. And there's no way to fix it. And I can point you to thousands of people who've lost their chance because they listened to that idiotic advice. So please don't do that. So pay really big attention to what goes on in January in terms of us analyzing the data and figuring out which embassies are performing badly. For people that are being added to the queue before January the 1st, they're not in too bad a position because even a badly performing embassy will get through some cases. But if you're being added to the queue after January, in February and March, and you're being added to a queue of a bad embassy, then then your case is ruined. Your case is completely screwed at that point. So you mustn't run that risk if you've got a way of changing that. And the way of changing that is by changing your address. And the only way you can change your address is unlocking your DS-260. Okay, so there you go. One of the most questions they ask on the interview for DV, the most questions. Okay, so I got a question from Paige, I think it was earlier, and I mentioned that the questions are pretty innocuous, not complicated at all. If you really want to see what people report as their interview experience, on my blog at britsimonsays.com, I have a page which is called the Interview Experience Stories. You can Google the word Brit Simon interview experience, and that page will come up, right? And in there is a bunch of people for several years now who've been adding their recollection of how their interview went, including what questions they were asked and all sorts of stuff. So that's a really useful resource if you want to know what a typical interview is like. Okay. Vlad, hey Brit, please comment on the last DV24 bulletin, especially the EU region, 12,000. Would you expect a 60,000 cutoff in the EU? No, I absolutely don't expect a 60,000 plus cutoff in the EU. That's far too high. There are too many selectees in Europe. There will be a cutoff. It won't go current. I'm not going to try and predict where the cutoff will come yet because I haven't seen the SEAC data. But once we see the SEAC data, we'll be able to determine what the distribution of cases is, and therefore where the cutoff is likely to happen. And I would normally say at this point that I'm not going to make those sort of predictions, but I think, frankly, I'm probably going to have to make I'm probably going to have to give a little bit more clarity to that, and maybe delve into some prediction areas in January. We'll see. We'll have a look and see what the distribution of cases looks like. Okay, but right now I can say no, I'm not expecting EU to go above 60,000. There's certain sort of fairly obvious answers, and that would be one of them. Hi, sir, I'm from Africa. My case number is in the 9K. Will I receive my 2NL? Almost certainly, yes, Chris. 15,000. Submitted DS260 in August. Will it be current in Ghana? You're already current. The question is whether you get an interview, and you might do. Ghana's kind of like been going slow. I expect. Let me go back to this question. I expect when we look at the data in January, we'll see that they've been taking something like 30 cases per month, which is not enough, but it's enough to get to the low case numbers, and you're in a low case number. So you could have a chance. You might have a chance. Okay. Freedom Stands. What alternative do I have if I don't have the I-134 form? Okay. The I-134 is about answering the question whether you will become a public charger or not. And that means whether you're going to depend on public assistance or government assistance to survive in the USA. That you don't. Immigration law for all immigration cases, not just DV lottery, but all immigration cases, insists that people don't become a public charge. Right? We don't want to give immigrant visas to people that are going to come over and just live from the system, right, straight away. Now that can happen for if something goes wrong, but we don't want that to be the plan, right? And so to avoid that, the I-134 is one possible way that you can show that you won't become dependent on government assistance. Other ways include showing your own personal funds, your own savings roughly at about $10,000 per person on your case. So if you're a family of four, something between $30,000 and $40,000 of saved money in your own bank account, or having an extremely lucrative and attractive job or career prospects. So, for example, let's say you don't have a lot of money in the bank and you don't have an I-134, but you're an extremely good programmer, and you're obviously going to get a job in America very quickly, right? They'll have less concern about you because of your job prospects than somebody else, right? The other way is to also show a job offer from someone in the USA, but generally speaking, job offers from the USA made to immigrants that haven't come to America yet are usually bullshit, right? That's usually, oh, you've got, your sister-in-law or whatever, or someone has said, I'll give you a job offer. It's not a real letter. It's not a real job offer. But you think that's going to help your case. If that job offer is bullshit, if it's not true, then that can only hinder your case because you're lying, and that's not a good idea. If, on the other hand, you literally are going to live in that place, where your sister-in-law lives, and she's got a business, and she's running a restaurant or something, and you're a great chef, and it makes perfect sense that you're going to go and work for her, then yeah, okay, fine, that sounds reasonable. But don't make up bullshit, right? So, to answer your question, if you don't have an I-134, you should have cash in the bank, or you should have job prospects or a job offer, and those things can help avoid the concern about the I-134. Okay. Mullah, my husband recently traveled to Cameroon and back to the UAE. Do I necessarily need to unlock the DS-260 to update the travel? No, you don't. No, and particularly since you're the main applicant and he's the derivative, no, you don't need to unlock and update for that. It's not a problem. Can an 18 years old person apply? Yes. No, there is no minimum age, actually. It's likely that most people won't have achieved the requirements until they're about 18. But there isn't a minimum age to apply, nor is there a maximum age to apply. You can apply in your 50s and 60s and 70s. No problem. Bassem says, regarding the re-entry permits, how long does it take to be issued, and should the applicant need to remain in the US until it's being issued? Yeah, there's a re-entry permit process. You file a form called the I-131, and part of that process is that you have to file it in the USA, and you have to wait until you've had your biometrics interview before you leave the USA. Once you've had your biometrics, which typically takes 6 to 8 weeks, once you've had the biometrics, you can then leave the USA, and the I-131, if approved, would then be sent to your embassy abroad. Okay, that can work out that way. Just be aware that not all I-131 applications are approved, and don't leave it until you've had your biometrics done, right? Because it just invalidates the process. So there you go. Ahmad says, I'm selected as winner of the DV Lottery 24. My case number is AS800. I think I've already answered that. Please, I want to apply. You have to wait until the next year to apply now. The entry period was in October. So there is you can't apply right now, and don't apply on these stupid bullshit websites that say you can apply in at any other time of year. You can't. Those are scam websites. Okay. Hi Simon, I'm from Nepal. I'm in USA as a 23 winner, and now I'm in Morrisville, North Carolina, and I came in October 2nd, got a job from October 13th. So thanks for the advices. Fantastic. Sounds like you're really doing well already. So you were there 11 days and already got a job. That's fantastic. Well done. It's quicker than me. It took me about 6 weeks to get a job. And that was even at a company that I knew very, very well because I'd contracted for them. But it's just that the employment process on some jobs here goes really slowly. So even before I arrived in America in 2014, I knew that company would hire me, and they had said they would hire me, but I still had to wait weeks and weeks, 6, 7 weeks or something after I arrived in the US to actually start working with them, which was nuts, but that's how it works. But yeah, sounds like you're doing really good, Umesh. Well done. Ayoub, please, AF55K, is there any chance? Yeah, there's some chance. Any chance to get for Morocco, same thing. Yeah, you've got a chance. Morocco does very well as an embassy, so you've got a good chance. What does a port of entry mean? A port of entry is a term used for the airports and seaports and land ports, which are known to be a path to entry into the USA. A port meaning portal or door, if you like, port of entry. So it's a place where they're expecting immigrants. So any international flight that you take, for example, that lands in the USA from abroad will only land at a port of entry. And so that's usually the first airport you land at in the USA. Now, let's say you're traveling to California, but you land first of all in New York, and then you're going to take a connecting flight from New York to California, right? And the flight that lands in New York is from Germany, right? Because that flight is coming from abroad, when it lands in New York, there is an immigration screening process there and then in that airport. And you have to allow time between 3 and 4 hours to get through that immigration screening and connect to your next flight, right? So don't have a connection that's less than 3 hours, right? That's the first point. Then when you've been through immigration in New York, you'll then board another plane to get to California, let's say, or wherever else you're going. And that's then a domestic flight. So then there's no immigration controls or anything else. You just go through normal security to get onto the plane. And when you get off the plane at the other end, you walk straight out into the street. No immigration controls needed at that point. Okay. So a port of entry, and the same thing. The port of entries could be seaports. You could arrive in the USA from abroad, from in a seaport, right? On a ship, or you could drive in from Canada or from Mexico. They're land ports, so they're all ports of entry. Okay. Okay. Is early filing Auric Batasha is okay. You've asked this question on my blog about early filing being safe for AOS. Someone's mum and other atheists have told repeatedly that chance of rejection is high if filed early. What do you think? I think, number one, you've asked that question on my blog already, and I've answered it already. Number two, someone's mum and Zathisius have not said, as you suggest here, that that the chance of rejection is high if filed early. What they've said is chance of rejection if filed before the beginning of the year, before 1st of October, is high. But after that, the chance of rejection for early filing for AOS is not high. So they haven't said what you said there. I don't know why you keep repeating it. I've already told you that's not true. And I think also I noticed that you've asked the same question in the forum of someone's mum, and she referred you to go read the instruction, the spreadsheets, etc. So I think you've asked the question there. So you keep getting told the same answer, but you keep ignoring the answer. That doesn't bode very well for your chances. So you need to start listening, okay? And stop asking me the same question over and over. That's kind of frustrating. Okay. Elbow, cough, elbow. I don't know what that means. Explain DV 2020, already have. A chances for DV 2020, already talked about it. Abu, good day, sir. Is it possible to apply DV Lottery 23? My wife did her file, and Simon's husband did mine. Well, I don't know. I don't understand your question. Can you rephrase that, Abu? I don't understand what you're trying to ask. Hybrid, when filling my DS260 application, I mistakenly selected no. Doesn't matter. That particular thing doesn't matter. Forget about it. Hi, Simon. Wanted to appreciate all you do. Wishing you a pleasant day. Thank you. That's kind of you to say so. Love, happy love. Thank you for the efforts. You're very welcome. Happy messages there. What do you think about 30K EU? Thank you. I think it's probably okay, but we'll wait and see the data. I think it'll be okay, but we'll see the data in January. I can edit my name after I closed it since May. If you're talking about on your DS260, you shouldn't be able to edit your name. And on the DS260, when you go in, you should see the word completed. And if it says completed, then your form is locked. If it doesn't say completed, if it says something like in progress, then you actually didn't submit your DS260. So check that. Greetings from Somalia. When can I know the case status, my case number, which is about 122K? Is near to be reached, or how many case numbers so far are interviewed? Okay, let me start at the back of your question. How many cases so far has been interviewed? We don't know. We don't have that data. We could only guess, but I'm not going to bother guessing. Is your case number near to be reached? No, far from it. Yours is about the highest case number I've heard. And if you've watched any of my videos and have seen me talking about it, I talk about the highest case numbers that I've heard being 122K. It's the highest case number, right? So you're miles away from that number being reached, and you're heavily at risk with that case number because it's a massively high number. So if I'm answering people at 90K and 80K and 100K that their case number is at risk, then obviously yours at 122K is even more at risk. Okay, so you need to sort of start wrapping your head around that, and then we'll know more in January. We'll know whether you're at the highest numbers or not, right, in January. So we'll see. What about AF40K? Is it a high case number? No, not particularly. If your case number is not current, email KCC to unlock your case for correction. Yeah, if your case, I don't know, this sounds like a statement, not a question. But yes, if your case number is not current, you can email KCC to unlock your case for corrections. You don't have to unlock for every little correction, right? There are some very trivial minor things on there, but generally you are smart to unlock and correct bad mistakes in your DS260. A spelling mistake on your name, for example, your date of birth being incorrect on your DS260. Those things would be important things to correct. Your marital status, if you've got married, you need to unlock your DS260 and correct that. Your address, if you've moved to another country and you want to be interviewed in that other embassy, then you need to unlock your DS260 and correct your address. That's how it works, right? So yeah, you can do that as long as you're not current. Hi Simon, when will you be online on January the 1st? Looking forward to your analysis. Okay, so in the middle of the night, as I'm asleep, Zarthisius will be up and working, and probably early morning we'll start talking, and I'll have the numbers from him, the data from him. It's a big extract on the first day because he has to go beyond the case numbers that we think could be in there. So he has to do a full extract and go beyond. We don't know what the highest case numbers will really be. So he's probably going to have to go to like Africa 200,000 or something. So he's going to go a long way, right? So it will take quite a while for the first extract to run. I'll probably have it around about morning my time, California time. I'll probably do, depends on how hungover I am from the previous day, but I'll probably do a video on that first day. If I can, but no promises on the time. I have to wait and see when we get the data. Okay. Sorry for this weird question, but do AOS follow the Visa Bulletin? Like, if the applicant is selected May and submit the I-45, will it take 3 months to get completed and you get the GC? No, you have to be current in order to submit the I-485 on AOS. If you got selected in May and you immediately submitted your I-485 before your number was current, or at least announced in the Visa Bulletin, then you will have that application rejected and you'll lose your fees and you'll have to reapply later when your number is current. Okay, so yeah, you have to follow the AOS process follows the Visa Bulletin. Yeah, there is a thing called early filing, an early filing policy. And the early filing policy means that you can file when you see your number has become current in the Visa Bulletin. You don't, and you know they're predictive, right? So in December, for example, we'll have the Visa Bulletin will be published in December, and it will be talking about cases that will be current in February. And so it would be permissible if you see your case number is now current for February to file in December after the Visa Bulletin, and that's according to the early filing policy, okay? But if you submit just ridiculously early, your case will be rejected, and you'll have to refile later. Josh says, hi Simon, my interview is happening soon in Sydney. What's an appropriate way to show savings? Bank statement sufficient or further evidence? In first thing, I would say in Sydney, you're very unlikely to be asked about savings unless you're a youngster, really young Josh, like 18, 19, 20 years old or something. You're just a kid, sorry. But, if you're really young like that, maybe they'll ask for savings. But generally speaking, Sydney doesn't ask for savings. but showing a bank statement will be fine. Okay. Can you please explain to me when you say the embassy performs bad? For me, an embassy that performs bad is an embassy that should be that has enough selectees assigned to it that are being processed, and let's say it should be doing 200 interviews per month or 150 interviews a month, right? Let's say 200 a month, which would be 2,400 interviews in a year, and therefore about 4,500 people, right? That would be a fairly busy embassy. But let's say that embassy that should be doing 200 a month sets their capacity at 50 a month. That means in month one, there's 150 people that are ready for interview, but don't get an interview. And then in month two, there's another 150 people that don't get an interview but are ready for interview. Now there's a backlog of 300 cases because the embassy only took 50 people in month one and 50 people in month two, and 400 people have become current and are processed within that time period, right? So now there are 300 people in a backlog. That's the sign of a bad embassy. They're building up a backlog month after month, which will just grow and grow and grow. And in that scenario, only very low case numbers will get a chance to be interviewed, and only where they have been processed pretty early. So that's a bad embassy. That's how you can spot it. And you can see those clear as day on Zarthis's website. I've explained previously how you do that. Andy, whereabouts? If selected May 7th, when is the case number assigned? Is it based on the earliest data the DS260 is received? If so, how long after selection would you say gives a good chance for a low case number? No, Andy, it's already over by then, mate. When you get selected, you already have been assigned a case number. And that was assigned randomly. It's not based on the day you enter the lottery or the size of your left leg or what color shirt you're wearing. It's not based on anything like that. It was randomly assigned. And so you have no control over it. And on May 7th, if you were selected, you'll know your case number from that very moment. Okay. It's right there, front and center. Okay. Okay. Hello, sir. Do I have chances to win from Zambia? Yeah, of course you have chances to win. Thank you for the hints. As a DV24 winner from Iran, when can I expect to see the second letter from Yerevan Embassy? Case number is AS 15,000. Okay, so you're not current yet. You won't be current for some months, right? I don't know how long that will take it particularly, but some months. And as you're Iranian, your background processing will take quite some time, right? So you're going to have to wait and see when your case number becomes current. And hopefully you submitted your DS260 nice and early in May or June. And hopefully your DS260 is processed by the time you become current. And if so, then you may get a chance for an interview. But just understand that for people from Iran in particular, if you get interviewed after May or June, you're really at risk, particularly if you're an Iranian male. You're at risk because you may not get processed in time after the interview. There's often there is extensive background checking after the interview as well as before the interview. And for Iranians in particular, that post-interview checking can take 4 months quite routinely. So yeah, it's risky. So I have to say, in DV23, I was looking at Iran and Nepal. Now in DV23, I think there are about 1,000 Iranian visas issued from well over 5,000. So the chance is roughly 20% of getting your getting your visa if you're Iranian. So a low percentage, right? Now contrast that with Nepal, that has about 3,800 selectees, and almost all of them get their visas, right? you can say that's unfair, whatever, yes, I mean, we could debate that all day long. Is that fair, or is that unfair, or whatever? But that's the fact of life. The fact of life is, if you're Iranian, you are much less likely to get your visa. That's just the way it is. And there's an army of lawyers out there willing to sue on your behalf and take your money, but the reality is still the reality. Okay, so there you go. Ara says, thank you for the efforts. I'm 24 with an 85 AF, closed DS260 on May. Discovered that my daughter name written correct with English spelling and wrong in Arabic, not as passport or birth. I don't think this is going to be a big problem. I would probably unlock and correct it, but as it's a derivative, it's probably not a problem. And as it's the name in Arabic, it's probably not a problem. But for me, I would unlock. And you've got an 85K number anyway, so you've got months to wait. Why not unlock? There's no harm in you unlocking. It's not going to make any difference. Okay. Prince, so I've got a real live Prince here, Prince Kusi. And he's gained so much knowledge from me. You're welcome, sir. Sorry, what's the right thing with the Prince? Should I be doing this or I don't know. But I'm honored to have a member of the royal family on my live here. Sid says, is it safe to still apply for B1, B2 visa if I have applied for DV? And what's your professional advice? I don't give professional advice about DV lottery for a start, because I'm not a lawyer. I do what I do for free. This is a hobby. This is not my profession. I give expert advice because I'm an expert, but not professional advice. Okay. Can you apply for a B1, B2 visa if you have applied for the DV? Yes, you can. They may in some circumstances, if you've won the DV lottery and you've submitted your DS260, that can be considered on your B1, B2 application as a negative sort of strike against you. It implies that you've got the intention to move to America and try and emigrate there, and it's known as immigrant intent. So you've got the intent to emigrate to America, right? And so that can make it harder to get a B1, B2 application through. But that's not just if you apply for DV, like if you enter the lottery. That's if you entered and you've won and you've submitted the DS260 and then also apply for a B1, B2. So there you go. Okay. What is an ACPO in the UK? Is it ACPRO certificate needed? Okay, so Bishace, I suspect that you've asked me this question already, but it's ACRO in the UK. If you read the reciprocity page, which is part of the instructions that you should have read, they will direct you to how in the UK you apply for your police certificate through the ACRO website. So go ahead and do that. Read the instructions first and foremost, and then apply for your police certificate in the UK. And I don't know what ACPO is. Maybe it's a new thing, but the instructions are there. Just follow the instructions. Okay. Hi, Simon. Visa Bulletin for January in South America was cut off in 1,000 case number. Will it be increased in February or March? Yeah, it probably will. I'm not going to predict how much it will increase by, but we normally expect the Visa Bulletin numbers to increase each month. Doesn't always, but it usually does. They can actually go backwards. It's called retrogression. The number can go backwards as well as forwards, and it can also stay where it is. So, but generally speaking, yeah, we expect it to be increasing in February or March. So fingers crossed for that. Forgot to mention the YouTube account. Not a problem. That's not really social media. You don't interact with people on YouTube. It's not a big problem. How long does it take to start the process once you're selected? It takes, well, when you're selected, if you become selected in May, You'll fill out your DS260 fairly soon in May, June, July, that sort of time frame. And the earliest interviews will start to happen from October, and the latest interviews will happen in September of the following year. So there's a 1-year time period where interviews happen. And your timing of your interview within that time period depends on your case number, which is assigned to you, and you'll find out in May. Okay? Hi, Brett. My name is Leonard. I'm a DV 2020 selectee. I would like to know whether the Court of Appeal forgot the case. How may DV 2020 know the conclusion? Okay, did they forget the case? No, they didn't forget the case. They just haven't finished the appeal process. They haven't announced their result. Okay. How will DV 2020 know the conclusion? Believe me, when I find out what the answer is from the appeal court, I will be shouting it from the rooftops, whether it's positive or negative. I'll create a video about it so we can finally talk about that. I'll mention it on my blog. I'll mention it on my Twitter account. You know, I've got well over 100,000 people that follow me in various platforms. So I will be getting the information out there, and all these other YouTube channels will be doing the same, I'm quite sure. So you'll hear about it. Don't worry. You'll hear about it. What is the chance of DV 2024 in Nairobi, case number 687K? Because you said no, so your case number is good, right? 67K is probably good. But Nairobi, bad embassy. They've been behaving badly for 2 or 3 years now. So you're heavily at risk if you choose to stay at Nairobi embassy. If you choose to stay at Nairobi embassy, you're probably not going to get your visa, is the honest answer. Which sucks, but that's the way it is. Okay, couple more questions, and we'll call it a day. I have an interview in December. I want to ask you one question. Which mistake in first entry may lead to visa denial? Oh, man. That's like, I'd much rather you ask a question that says, I made this mistake, will that lead to denial, than try and list all the reasons that you might possibly be denied. But the big mistakes are you didn't put your correct name and address, and you didn't correct those things in the DS260, so that your documents don't tie up with the information in the DS260. That's a bad problem. You missed a spouse from the original entry, or a child from the original entry. That's a bad problem, and that means certain disqualification. You claim to be married when you weren't married. That's a big problem. You chose a country of birth on your original entry that was not the correct country of birth. That can be a big problem. It can be forgiven in some circumstances, but not always. So that's a bad problem. I mean, I could go on, but there are several things you can do wrong in the entry that will lead to your denial later. And the biggest ones are missing a derivative, right? That's just obvious that if you've missed a derivative from the original entry and the government knows about that, you are 100% certain to be disqualified at interview if you're stupid enough to go to the interview, right? I mean, just don't go to the interview. If you missed a derivative from your original application, don't go to the interview. It would be nuts to do so. What are the chances of being selected for an African mother of an American citizen child? What difference does it make if you're an African mother of an American citizen child? It doesn't make any difference to your chances of selection. The fact that you're African means that you have about a 1 in every 200 years chance of selection. And the fact that you've got an American citizen child doesn't change that one bit. It's a random lottery draw. Okay. Hamidou says, I'm a male. I'm married with 2 children, 3 years old each. Do I have a chance of getting a visa with them if I'm selected? Yes, but you'd need to have full custody documentation that shows you've got full custody of the kids to be able to go. And if the mother of the children is still alive and talking to you and whatever, you might want to consider getting married to her so that you can go as a family. But you know, I appreciate it doesn't always work out that way. Louis says, filing DS260 early, does this reflect positively for a high case number? Look, it helps. but you can't. A person with a high case number, our friend with the case number 122K, he might have submitted his DS260 on the very first day, right? 7th of May, 8th of May, something like that. He submitted it right there. That doesn't matter if his case number never gets current, right? So it doesn't help him that he submitted his DS260 early if his case never gets current. Okay, so yeah. Okay. Okay, one more question. If I can find one more question. Wow, I've actually kept really good pace with the questions today. Is London Embassy good at giving interviews? Yes, they are. They tend to behave well. That's it. I think I'm up to date. I don't think there's any other questions, so I'm good. I'm going to stop the chat here right before I get another question. So, thanks for joining me today. I hope that was informative to you. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Honestly, you should realize by now you get the best information here. I was listening to another video from another YouTuber the other day, and he was explaining various things about the process, and I'm sitting there watching the video thinking, I think that guy learned everything he knows from listening to my YouTube channels. And just to sort of put a cap on that, he then went on to describe how holes are created, what the holes are, the gaps in between numbers. And it just struck me that until I invented that word in that context, nobody was calling them holes. I named that context or that thing back in 2013, 10 years ago, right? So everybody that's referring to holes today, they're referring to holes because Brit Simon 10 years ago coined the phrase holes. Now, I'm not saying I invented the English word for hole. I'm just the person that said, okay, what are these gaps in between numbers? How do we understand it? How do they get created? And how do I explain that to someone? Oh, I'll call them holes, right? That's the thought process I went through. So people today just, routinely referring to information that I've educated people about it over the last 10 years. So follow the original person that knows the most about this process. Please don't get fooled by other people that have a partial understanding of this process. So if you want the best information, please do follow my channel. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video and others, and let's make sure you get your DV Lottery green card. Right? What could be better than that? All right, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.